Hello everybody and welcome back to Sweet and Sour Soccer, and we are back with week 25 of Premier League predictions. Before I jump into these predictions, I just want to give a quick shout out because me and James finally back on a video together and you guys really seem to enjoy it. We've got some really good interaction with you guys, which was great to see. And we are, I promise, going to be bringing more content of me and James, basically just doing what we do best, arguing it out. And we've got a few ideas planned. So hopefully there will be plenty more content of me and James going at each other, because I know you lot really do love that. But we are back with Premier League predictions. And unfortunately, there's only 8 Premier League games this week due to the Carabao Cup. But I am going to keep it nice on this Premier League predictions, because at the very end, I'm also going to give you my Carabao Cup final prediction. Obviously massive game there between United and Newcastle United. But let's jump in to these Premier League predictions, and we start off with Fulham, who will take on my club Wolverhampton Wanderers. I think that one's on telly on Friday night. Going to be an interesting game, to be honest. I think Fulham have been playing fantastically this season. Wolves, though, will be frustrated after that defeat against Bournemouth. I'm not even going to say we were the better team. We just had a lot more possession, but Bournemouth played an absolute cracker, defensively stable, and they did what they should do against the Wolves team that have really struggled to score this season. They just frustrated us. It's going to be interesting to see if Fulham will go for a similar tactic. Obviously, they're much higher up in the table, or whether they will have the confidence just to go fully at this Wolves team. The one thing that does do, though, is it does open up the defence, and that could lead to Wolves' goal. If I was Fulham, in all honesty, I'd just play it really smart and just hit Wolves on the counter, especially when you've got fast players such as Willian playing really fantastically at the moment. As I say, on these Premier League predictions, I never try and just put my own club bias into it. So I'm probably going to upset a few Wolves fans with this one. But in all honesty, I just have an honest feeling that Fulham are going to edge this one. I think, they really deserve the respect of what they've done this season. And I think I am going to actually say Fulham win this 2-1. Now, let's move on to speaking about another Midlands team, and that is Aston Villa, who take on Everton. I feel Villa will be really disappointed after, obviously, what happened in the Arsenal game. It was some comeback by Arsenal, though. We've got to say that. Obviously, Villa held the lead twice, ended up losing it 3-2. A moment of madness, weren't it, really, from 4-2, wasn't it, actually? Sorry. The moment of magic from that Jorginho goal, and then, obviously, Martinez went up for the corner, which resulted in the 4th Arsenal goal. And he did get some criticism of that from Unai Emery, basically saying that he didn't want to see that again. So if you are a betting man, probably don't back Martinez to score, but you probably wouldn't anyway. I think the one thing that you've got to bear in mind with this fixture is Everton are at home, and they're also building a bit of momentum as well. We know how good this Everton team can be at Goodison Park. If there is anything that's going to keep this Everton side up, apart from obviously the obvious Mr. Sean Dyche, it will be the fact of when it comes to their home form. I think it's what kept them up last season. I think it will be what keeps them up this season, should they stay up this season. So I am going to actually back the home team this time. I think that, again, Villa's worrying run will continue. And I'm actually going to say that Everton get this done in a nice 2-1 fashion. Yes, guys, it is that part of the video, and I'm not going to be long. If you are enjoying the video, please do me a massive favour. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel as well if you're new here. Now, let's get back to those Premier League predictions. I've already predicted 2-2-1, so my promise on this next one is it won't be a 2-1 prediction. It is Leicester who take on Arsenal, and obviously Leicester, I thought after the last previous weeks, they'd probably show a bit of, a real fight in that game against Manchester United. It wasn't to be, was it? And Arsenal, they showed some fight. They came back against Aston Villa. A really good, much needed win for them. And it'd be interesting to see now if they come to Leicester in some confidence. Leicester are at home, and I think that will make some difference on the performance that we see. And Leicester just starting to keep looking over their shoulders, aren't they? They're very much still possibly in this relegation battle. I don't think they will go down, because I think, unlike a lot of teams in this relegation battle, they have got the goals, which other teams haven't. But their defensive record is worrying. And I come up against an Arsenal team that are going to be full of confidence. And as we know, they've also got a goal in them. I think for that reason, I am going to back top of the league Arsenal. I am going to say they're going to get it done, but in a very narrow scoreline of 1-0 to the away team. Let's move on to speaking about West Ham, and West Ham who are massively under pressure, and David Moyes will continue to be under pressure because they just don't look very good, do they, this season? You know, I think a lot of pundits saying surely a team and the team that they've got can't go down, especially with players such as Declan Rice in the squad. I'd probably argue you could say that about almost every team in the Premier League at the moment. I think every single Premier League team has some stars and has a really good squad. It's going to come down to performances. It's going to come down to fight. And it's also going to come down to form, of which, in all honesty, West Ham aren't showing a great deal of any of those at the moment. So I think they really are in danger, but they get a huge opportunity at home to kind of put a bit more pressure on those teams above them. And one of those will be Nottingham Forest, who come into these next two games, firstly against West Ham. And then I believe they have Everton. I think it's Everton. They've got two back-to-back relegation candidates anyway in the next 2 weeks. So it's a massive couple of weeks for Nottingham Forest. I think if they can get 6 points out of these next two games, it really would see them basically just pull away from relegation and probably just allow their fans, allow Steve Cooper and all the players just to maybe breathe a sigh of relief and maybe focus on just trying to finish the season really strongly. I feel this is a massive couple of weeks and we're really going to start to see who are going to be the true ones battling the relegation. I don't think we'll see 7 or 8 teams like it is now battling for the whole course of the season, but I do think it's going to be really close. When it comes to this one, I think because the Hammers are at home, I think they will score, but I think Nottingham Forest will score as well. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw in this one. We move on to another relegation fight, and it is Leeds who take on Southampton, and we are led to believe now that Leeds will have a new manager. It might have already been confirmed by the time you're watching this. So obviously that's going to be interesting because I suppose at the moment, at the time of recording, it's the two teams which don't have a manager, where obviously we now understand that Leeds are going to go out and get their new manager, and it's going to be interesting to see what difference he can make. But at the same time, things are looking a bit more up with Southampton because the former number 2 under Hasselhoff has really now got the respect of the fans, and a lot are wanting Salah to stay on. Could he be the man to save them from relegation? I think this is going to be similar to the West Ham versus Forest game, actually. I think we're going to see a very competitive game between both teams, and I think we're going to see a lot of goals as well. My instant instinct, actually, is to go for 2-2 again, but I don't think I can say 2-2. I can't say 2-1 either because I've picked a lot of 2-1s, haven't I? I'm going to go, I'm going to say a draw. I'm going to say 1-1. I think the points will be shared between these two teams. Both will have a bit more confidence and an upward feeling about, everything that's happening after the last week for both clubs. Bournemouth taking on Manchester City, and Bournemouth, massive win against Wolves. They'll be wanting to continue that. I think they did it with some real strong defensive stability. I think they really showed some smartness as well when it came to wasting time. A lot of clubs, and especially, I'll say myself, I didn't like to see it, but it was very smart, and you have to respect what they did, because ultimately they walked away from Molineux with the 3 points. Manchester City, though, it's not going to be an easy task for Bournemouth because you imagine they're going to be coming with some massive fight because City have just been really disappointing, haven't they? I suppose when you were watching that 12 o'clock game and you thought that Arsenal were going to throw it away after losing to City as well, you thought City were going to go on, get the win, and then everyone would have said at that point, maybe at the start of Saturday, that it looked like City were going to be the title winners almost. But they went and, fair play to Forest, played very well, but City didn't win that game. And I think they'll be looking to make a huge, huge response against Bournemouth. And I think for that reason, I've got to back the away team. And I think it will be a nice, comfortable 3-0 for them. I think they're going to come out with some might and fight. Crystal Palace now taking on Liverpool, and this has been one of those fixtures, hasn't it, over the years, which has really had defining consequences. You always look back to that year that Liverpool nearly won the title. Sorry to remind you of it, Liverpool fans, but that 3 2-2 draw. And it's always been one of those games that just seems to have some goals in it. Of course, Liverpool will be feeling much more confident now when it comes to their league form. There's some questions, though. Everyone's saying that Liverpool have turned a corner. I'm interested whether that's actually factual, because I think you've got to bear in mind, yes, although they did get the win against Newcastle, you could argue Newcastle had 10 men, and they still made hard work of it to some degree as well. At certain points, it did look in the second half like Newcastle were going to bag a goal and get themselves back into it. But we do have to be respectful to Liverpool. Of course, they did get the win. They're starting to build some wins. And of course, that's got everyone speaking about whether they could still mount a charge now for the top 4. To do that, they're going to have to start building quite a string of wins. And they come up against the Crystal Palace team, which in all honesty are in the greatest of form. And I think for that reason, I'm going to back the obvious team. It's probably not a very exciting prediction, but I am going to say 2-0 to Liverpool. Move on to, I think, the last Premier League game before I predict the Carabao Cup final. It's an interesting one, isn't it? This is another fixture which we know has history. Spurs versus Chelsea. I always think back again to a few years ago when Leicester won the title and Spurs somehow managed to finish 3rd in a 2-horse race. And that all kind of happened at the hands of Chelsea. I think everyone kind of looks back at that game, because since then, and it always has, it's just been really ferocious between these two teams. Of course, it is a North London derby as well. So this is going to be a really good game to watch to finish off, obviously, Super Sunday. And I'm looking forward to it because I don't know what to make of it. One thing you would say about Spurs is they did look very good in the Premier League last week, but we know consistency has been a problem for Spurs. Some days they can look fantastic. They can look like potential title contenders. Other games, they look like complete relegation fodder. Chelsea, Graham Potter, massive, massive week for him. He's going to need a win. And I think he needs a win to get the Chelsea faithful and the Chelsea fans maybe behind him, because at the moment they're behind him in the sense that they're literally pushing the bloke out the door. They don't want him. They'll want things to change at the football club. And I think this is going to be a good game. I'm expecting a really fiery contest. And I think I am going to actually call 2-2 draw in that one to finish my predictions for the Premier League. Now let's finish off with that icing on the top, the cherry on the top, I should say. Man United take on Newcastle, Carabao Cup final. Now this is a really interesting game because, of course, Newcastle are going to be without Nick Pope. It does seem a shame, really, that he gets sent off in the Premier League and then he has to serve a ban in the Carabao Cup, missing the final. But then Newcastle have benefited in a way from that, because if you remember, Bruno Guimaraes got sent off in the semi-final. He served the ban in the Premier League, which means he is now available for the final in the Carabao Cup. So kind of swings and roundabouts, but I'm sure Nick Pope will be massively disappointed. I think this is going to be a really good game. And coming into it, you have to say that Manchester United's form is a lot better than Newcastle United's form. Newcastle have kind of dropped off just a little bit, haven't they, with their form and how they've been performing. But this is a massive, massive game for them. It's a cup final. I think they could have probably sold out Wembley two times over themselves, in all honesty, with the amount of interest around tickets. I think this is going to be a good final. I'm looking forward to watching it. Do I have a strong favourite? I don't think I'm due. So this is where I'm going to say it's going to go to penalties. And the man that everyone's going to be looking at, Karius, he's going to have a superhero moment. He's going to be the man of the hour. He's going to make some key saves when it goes to penalties. And he's going to win Newcastle United the Carabao Cup. Of course, there is the interesting thing, though, that another goalkeeper, Martin Dubravka, I honestly don't know who he will be supporting in this one. He's a Newcastle United player, but if Manchester United win the Carabao Cup, he gets a winner's medal. So that's going to be interesting as well to see, because in all honesty, who's he going to be supporting in this one? Yeah, that is a really interesting scenario. It doesn't usually happen, but I've gone for a bit of a stream scenario there. Is it likely to happen? Probably not. But guys, do let me know your Premier League predictions as always. And as a bonus, let me know who you think is going to win the Carabao Cup as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Subscribe to the channel. Goodbye.